Hello, welcome friends. Today with me I have Brian White. He's my boss at Chick-fil-A, Ina and Thornydale. Brian, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us a little about yourself, background. How did you come to Christ? How did you get into the restaurant business, and how did you eventually become an owner and operator at Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
This is really cool, and
Yeah.
it's really impressive to see what you're doing. So,
Yeah, well, praise the Lord.
Thank you, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so let's see. I guess I'll tell you my faith journey first.
Yes,
I was very blessed to grow up in a Christian home.
Uh-huh.
When I was 5, my sister got leukemia, and so that was probably one of the first times when I reflect back on what my faith journey was like. I remember going into her room at night and just kind of praying, and again,
Yeah.
not really having any sort of understanding, right? The faith that a 6-year-old can have,
Yeah.
but was blessed to be in a home that I knew enough like for what that was, and just kind of like praying to God at that point. I grew up a swimmer. My dad was a career swim coach, and so we spent most weekends at the pool,
Okay.
at swim meets all
Yeah.
over the state of Florida and beyond. And so we weren't the traditional church attendee. And in fact, I kind of hated going to church because I feel like I would go and I didn't know the songs. I didn't really know anyone, and it was just kind of awkward. But it was very blessed that my parents and my dad in particular, I just remember sitting around the kitchen table and him teaching us and talking to us about what it means to believe in Jesus and all of those things. And so it probably was high school when I really kind of started to take it into my own hands and
Uh-huh.
getting up before school and going to Fellowship of Christian Teens and doing other events and going to church on my own on kind of Sundays. Not that we wouldn't go as a family, but kind of taking that into my own
Sure.
to my own hands. And then was blessed throughout college, kind of shortly after there, meeting my wife Trisha, and so we kind of entered that next season of our faith journey together. So it's kind of cool, I think, being able to grow up in a Christian
Yeah.
household, never really kind of know anything other than that, but being able to see these different seasons of life.
Right.
And then having kids was another journey,
Yeah.
right? And like the biggest prayer as parents is that they would know Jesus. And so Trisha and I, how we raised them and how we were involved in different activities and churches and those kind of things, and to see our girls now, one's kind of just coming off of a season of being a full-time missionary for the past 3 years,
Uh-huh.
living over in Norway, has
Okay.
gone to about 21 countries
Wow.
out and about doing missionary work. And then our other one kind of ended up following in that same path, stayed more U.S. centered,
Okay.
and then has since recently gotten married and recently gotten hired on at our church as youth girls coordinator. So
That's cool.
as parents, looking back at what's important to us and what drives us and our faith, to be able to now look at our kids as, to me, I think the only thing that we could be
Right.
ultimately excited about, right? I think if they believe in Jesus and follow Jesus, it's not going to always be easy, and our circumstances obviously don't lead our joy, our happiness. But I think like the fact that they've just totally surrendered to Him and let Him guide. And
Yeah.
selfishly, we have one here in Tucson, which we
Uh-huh.
didn't think we would have, and our other one, who's been over in Norway for 3 years, is currently back in the U.S.
Okay,
for
good.
a season. So so we're super blessed in that.
Yeah. Good. So how did you start on the business side in your life? Like, what was your background when it comes to business?
Yeah, so it's funny. I mentioned I grew up a swimmer and grew
Right.
up a triathlete, and actually when I met Trisha, I remember telling her I never want to have a real job. I just wanted to race my bike for a living.
Yeah.
She was all in and
Yeah.
decided that she's like, I remember one time she was telling me, she's like, hey, I'll do whatever it takes. Like if I have to work at night, a second, third job, that's what I'll do to help you kind of pursue that
Wow.
career. Around that time, I think, that's all I wanted to do, but I was also realizing that like, hey, the life of a professional athlete is awesome, right? But it
Yeah.
also can kind of be somewhat lonely and
Yeah.
somewhat selfish, and would require a lot of me traveling kind of all over the world
Sure.
while she's at home. And I just kind of quickly got to a point where I was like, I just don't feel that God's calling me to do that. It was a great season of life. And so I kind of fell into coaching with my dad. As I mentioned, he was a coach. And I think one day there was one of his coaches didn't show up or something along those lines. And
Okay.
so he's like, hey, can you help out? And so I did, and kind of just fell into that. He ended up kind of retiring. I stepped in as head coach for the team, was kind of following in that path. And I'd always wanted to be a firefighter from a young age. And so I decided to go ahead and pursue firefighting. And I kind of thought at that point that was going to be all I was going to do. Simultaneously, around that time, my wife was working with a company called Fleet Feet, and it's a run, walk specialty retail store. And when she first started there, she helped one of the stores in Savannah, Georgia at the time where we were living, opened up. They were looking for someone to lead it with the owner. And so she just fell in love with it. About 2 hours into it, I remember her telling me, like, hey, if we could ever have our own store, that would kind of be the ideal state. So I ended up leaving firefighting again, which I thought I would be in that for forever, and going into business. I worked in that location for a year to learn it with her, and then we ended up moving to North Carolina to take over a location, and we ended up opening up a second location there. So that kind of got me into the business world. I love the small business retail / restaurant side of things, much like we do. I like that we can have an idea and we can literally brainstorm, or you can come to me and say, hey, I have an idea. And we're like, cool, let's go do it. While I was transitioning into Chick-fil-A, I was working at the corporate side for a little bit with my wife, because where we were, the corporate offices were there. So we kind of had this unique setup with our 2 locations, and we did a lot with corporate. And I kind of realized pretty quickly on, like, I didn't want to be on the corporate side because I like that kind of grassroots, like the hustle. And so it was kind of through being in a small community, Chapel Hill, college town, meeting some Chick-fil-A operators through Fleet Feet. They were, very willing just to kind of share, and we just kind of became friends, and we'd meet on a regular basis and talk life and family and faith. And I'd always come home and tell Trisha more and more about Chick-fil-A as a business. We always loved it from a food standpoint. We always loved it from culture standpoint. When you look at, like, how does Chick-fil-A get the team members like they do? But I never in a million years thought about it from a business standpoint. But more and more I'd come home and tell her, and one day she's like, you should apply. And it was kind of around the time we were switching over to the corporate side, and she knew I wasn't going to probably be happy there long term. And so kind of just on a whim, I applied. It was a long application, probably about, I think it was like 30 pages.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah, and it was the sort of thing where they're like, you'll hear back from us in a couple of weeks. And I think it was just a few days later I heard back that I passed that and moved forward. And so I was like, this is amazing. Well, little did I know it's a super long, drawn out process of about 2.5 years on average. And so it was a lot of waiting and go to an interview, and then more waiting, go to an interview. And during that time, I knew I kind of wanted to leave that corporate setting, get back either into like the small business, kind of the hustle and bustle of the grind, or potentially maybe go back to public safety. And so throughout that process of Chick-fil-A, I'd go some months without hearing anything. And so I almost bailed a couple times. I think I applied to probably every fire and police department in that Chapel Hill, North Carolina area. And I would sign up, and I would maybe go do the written test, but I would never pursue, or I wouldn't show up for the test. I just kept kind of having that faith, right, of like, hey, if this is what God's calling me to do, like, I want to be patient. But that season of patience is hard. And so I'm very thankful that I did, because I think that opened up, obviously, the door to where we are, and opportunities that really I could have never imagined. But yeah, so that was kind of my journey into Chick-fil-A. It was not something I set out to. I never worked in a restaurant ever a day in my life before we opened up this restaurant. And it was funny, because even in the application or the interview process, I remember they asked me one time, like, hey, if we don't choose you for Chick-fil-A, what other franchises in the restaurant industry are you looking at? And I was like, honestly, I'm not, right? Like, I want to be in the Chick-fil-A business. I want to go into partnership with the Cathy family. I don't really just want to get into the restaurant industry. And so I look at what we do. Obviously, it's food, right? We have to create our own products, whereas in our world before of Fleet Feet, we just purchased shoes from Nike and New Balance and Asics, and we just sell them. And then obviously at Chick-fil-A, we have to produce it. And so that was probably the biggest, not hurdle, but like learning of it's up to us and the entire team of the flow from receiving the food from the truck to getting it into the bellies of our guests. It's that whole process, which is very different from traditional retail. But business is business in many ways. And so I think there was a lot of learnings that were transferable. I think the people side is very transferable. I think at Fleafy, I was blessed with, it's a small business, small industry amongst, you're competing against online, you're competing against big box. And the one thing that they can't do is that the personal individualized one-on-one
Right.
attention and the care. And so I always kind of had that background with Trisha, and we were just obsessed over that. And I think that transferred really well into Chick-fil-A and what makes Chick-fil-A special.
Yeah, that's cool. So Chick-fil-A is all about serving people. Having worked there, I know that is 100% what we're all about. Makes us different. So we emphasize at Chick-fil-A that second mile service. What does that mean to you personally? You can describe what it is, and then what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so second mile is really something that Truett Cathy, our founder, came up with many years ago. Again, he built Chick-fil-A on biblical principles.
Right.
And one of those principles is from the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus talks about going the extra mile, right? When a Roman soldier could walk up and say, you need to carry my gear, right?
Yeah.
You just had to be willing to do that. It was like, hey, like, find not only just joy in that, but go more, like go beyond. And so taking that principle from that towards how we serve people. And the crazy thing is, right? Like when we get the amount of transactions that we do every day, that's a whole kind of snapshot of society, right? We have no idea who's walking in that door next, what their belief systems are, their value systems are, their happiness, their sadness. They could have just been in a car accident. They could have been, whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're bringing that in, and it's transactional in the sense of like, it is our responsibility to provide them a service for what they're paying, right? But that's baseline, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately in business, and a lot of businesses, that's kind of what we've succumb to, right? Is it's just as very transactional interaction. Whereas I think that second mile keeps us honest of like, hey, are we truly doing this with joy in our hearts? And are we doing this to not only just like go above and beyond, because it's not really scripted, as you know, right? Like when we give people examples, it doesn't rain a whole lot here, but a perfect example is like, hey, if it's raining and we have an umbrella, like let's just decide to walk a guest to their car. We're not saying if it rains you have to do this, right? What we're saying is like, hey, we get to do this. And I think that's really ultimately what's I think special about what we do, is trying to empower people to go find those unique ways to like take the gifts that they're given to go do something special with it and do something unique. And so I think for me personally, what it means is just that, like, I think God wired us in so many different unique ways. Right. And I think if we just go about our day with our head down, victims of our circumstances, right? So whether we're super happy or super frustrated based on what's going on in life, like the Holy Spirit nudges us all day long. And if we're not willing to listen to it, and it's like, hey, maybe you should go say hi to that person. It's like, I don't have time, right? Like, why get that thought out of my head? Right. And so I think it's just finding ways to be able to slow down and be intentional. And I think I've struggled with that because I want to kind of do everything for everybody. And I don't think that's possible. Right? I think even if you look at our team, we are a snapshot, like this cultivation of a lot of life that's going on, and life is messy and it's a lot of challenges. Like I can't help everyone through their circumstances, but what I can do is be there for them. I could be there to care for them. And then maybe like individuals through certain circumstances, right? Like maybe we are able to do things. And so I think that's like when I look at second mile, like for personally, like it's just how do I make sure that I'm being intentional every single day to keep my eyes open to the opportunities to go take advantage of things and care for people. And again, regardless of who they are. I mean, second mile service is not so that I can get something from that, right? Yeah. And in business, that's kind of tricky, right? Because we are transactional. I mean, we're not a charity. We're a charitable business. Right. And so yes, like we are in business to try to hopefully find success, right? Success, excellence, two different things, but we're chasing, like we're always chasing something as business, but I think the purpose and the reason why we do it kind of lends itself to that second mile. Yeah,
I think it's something that really separates Chick-fil-A from all these other different companies that are great, because you could get, to us, right? We know what is bad service to us, but a guest could come in and see our bad service that we know is bad service because of our high standards and be like, oh, that was still great because our service is just such a high bar, which is what separates us from other places, we get to be closed on Sundays and still have a ton of people come in and make just as much money as any of these other restaurant chains. So it's something really, really cool how Chick-fil-A, and God blesses Chick-fil-A for even doing that, just the Christian values there. So why do you think serving people well is so important? We emphasize it when we have our meetings and things like that. You emphasize it as our boss. Serving people is one of our number one priorities. But what is the reason behind that?
I think it really ultimately stems down, again, to just that transactional and not being transactional.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we measure transactions, and we have to be efficient at transactions. But exactly what you just said, right? When people come into Chick-fil-A, hopefully on our bad day, we're still better, but that's the danger, right? Like the danger is we can get in our own heads and think we're really good. We can pat ourselves on the back and say we're really good. But I think if we're not constantly hungry, and Truett used to have a saying, and as a brand, we're starting to kind of like reinvent this. I mean, same concept, but I guess say it a lot more. And the whole idea is like, why not your best? Right? That like we get to do this, right? That's another saying that we have is even baseline, everyone that comes in, like when you come into work, you're not volunteering, right? So there's a transaction there in the sense of like we are paying you to provide a service. Baseline 101, nothing super romantic about that, right? So now if we empower you to be the best version of you, I often say like you come in, you put your costume on, you get into character, and it should not be fake, right? But when you put that Chick-fil-A name tag on, hopefully there's a sense of pride where it's like, hey, this isn't even about me anymore, right? Like, yes, I'm here. It's a job. Maybe on a random Tuesday, you're like, I don't really even want to be here, right? But like we get to decide from a service standpoint that like, hey, this is important to me, and we're each going to have our why. And I think that's the fundamental like struggle for everyone is like you've got to get to the why, or it is just going to be transactional. And so I think if we can give some examples of like, hey, like this is what it means to provide a second mile service. In orientations, I talk a lot about if we just did the core four, which for those that don't know, it's we look each other in the eye, we share a friendly smile, we speak enthusiastically, and then for the Chick-fil-A version, we say my pleasure when someone says thank you. I think if the world did that, we would be a much better place, right? Like, what if we just walked around society and like looked at each other and smiled? That's doesn't seem like that crazy of an idea, but it is, right? And so again, some of these standards are pretty low, but as you know, like on any given day, on a random Tuesday at Chick-fil-A at Thorndale, that might not be happening. And so we have to make sure that we're always inspecting what we expect, but it can't just be that. It can't just be like, hey, do it because we're telling you to do it. Do it because you're part of Chick-fil-A. Like you've got to get to your own purpose and your own why is to like, hey, like I get to do this. Here's some examples, and let me just go find those creative ways to serve, to care, to love for people. Because again, everyone walking through the door could benefit from those things, right? And Truett would often say, like, how do you know someone needs encouragement? And the answer is they're breathing, right? Like every single human being needs encouragement, and in some way more than others. And honestly, some will only get that maybe at Chick-fil-A on a, like we're open right now, Saturday. Perhaps, right, there's someone who that is going to be the only place today that actually looks them in the eye and asks them how their day is going. And maybe they just don't have a community, and and so we can never take for granted what we do, and as I often say, like never underestimate the impact that we have on people's lives, because there's so many stories of how individuals with that Chick-fil-A name tag on have transformed people's lives just by looking at them, smiling, speaking words of encouragement, and that's not hard, right? That's all, and team members get paid to do it, right? And so at the end of the day, how great is that, right? When we talk about we get to do this, like we literally get paid to go care for people and love for people.
Yeah, that's really cool. But how do you teach? Okay, so you're taking a lot of younger people usually. How do you take them and teach them that idea? Because it's not, like we talked about, it's not common anymore, unfortunately. But how do we take something that's not common and teach it to these young people to have them be able to do it and do it because they want to?
Mm-hmm. And that's the tough thing, right? If it were easy, every industry, every business would be doing that. I think I think it starts ultimately with that emotional intelligence. And I think when someone walks in, we have an unfair advantage. Well, maybe not, because I think seasons when we've not been as strong, we attract not as strong of candidates, right?
Right.
So if people walk in and they see and they see you doing the things that exemplify what it means to care for people, to love people, to serve people, and we're busy and it's chaotic and there's a line out the door,
Yeah.
and they're like, sweet, like these are my people, this is my, so you are the recruitment tool for people who are going to find that exciting, right? People who don't want to stop playing video games and go work, right, are not going to come work with us. And so I think we do have a little bit of an unfair advantage always. So I kind of want to preface that of years of Chick-fil-A people prior to me, prior to you, who have built this brand on a national level, on a local level, that we've been able to kind of get that snowball moving. And I think once that starts to move, it's easier. But ultimately, we are responsible not for the brand, but for, we have to protect the brand through our location. And so I think with us, we have our Winning Hearts Everyday strategy. And I think that's a platform to basically empower people to go be great. And I think some of it is really teaching the team, yes, the fundamentals, because it's all task-driven operations, right? So in our Winning Hearts Everyday strategy, there's operational excellence and there's second mile service. And those two things are really connected by attentive and friendly team members. And so operational excellence is the tactics, right? It is systems, people need systems can't happen without people. So those two things allow accuracy, and those things allow speed, and they allow, from the minute we receive chicken into the restaurant, again, to how it gets into someone's belly, all those steps that have to go. And yes, that's why people like Chick-fil-A, because if they didn't like chicken, they're probably not going to come. And if they have a bad experience somewhere else and they move here and they're like, Chick-fil-A is not that great, right? So we need to protect that. But fundamentally, like, there's systems that the brand has been able to go coast to coast, even international now, to protect that recipe and protect like the standards. On that other side of second mile service, that, to answer your question, like, is the beast that we're constantly trying to chase. Because I think if we just told people, go do this, even my pleasure, right? Hey, if someone says thank you, say my pleasure, and you're like, my pleasure, right? It doesn't do anything. And so our job is to, yes, like, inspect what we inspect, but also to empower. And I think the training comes from, obviously, foundational, right? Like, set the stage, set the standards for, like, this is the expectation. We have ways to measure that. But then you're the perfect example, right? You've worked different areas of the restaurant, hospitality being a big one. So, like, perhaps no one better than you to be able to speak into that, of just like, hey, like, what do you think, right? Because I guarantee if it was just me and a bunch of other me's leading that place, it would be a horrible experience, right? Like, we need everyone's personality. We need everyone's knowledge, insights. Like, when you're out there being a dining room host, or you're leading a shift, or you're leading drive-through, or working front counter, like, what's working, what's not, and we have to be able to listen to that. And I think actually currently in the season, I'm just trying to get as much intel as possible through surveys and those kind of things, because, like, frontline team members, and take it to, like, the most entry level team members, they're ultimately the experts, right? Because they're the ones like, this is hard, right? And if I had this, it would actually be easier, right? Or this doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile, we might think like, hey, this thing's totally clear, right? Clear as day. And then they're confused. So I ultimately think, like, once someone comes in and kind of knows up from down in our organization, like, they're not quite the truth tellers yet, because I think there's a level of trust that's required, but they really, I think, kind of have the most to give at that point. And then I think then it's up to us to figure out, okay, like, how do we formulate that? How do we create systems to go train and to inspire? Because I ultimately think, like, a decentralized command leadership style, which I believe we have at INET Thornadale, like, it really requires, like you've got to surrender and trust the troops, right? You put it into a military standpoint, like, the top military leader isn't in the battlefield leading, right? But there's got to be a lot of clear expectations through there. But then you have to be able to trust and empower the ones who are actually on that battlefield to go do their job, and then be able to come back and download from that and say, okay, like, this is where we need to improve. And so that the next time you go out, you're even better, and the next time. And the fortunate thing for us is we kind of get 2 tries a day. I'm sure you've experienced that. We might have a really rough morning, but hey, a whole new crew is coming in for the afternoon, nighttime shift, or vice versa. And so, there's those days where it's a struggle bus, and we're like, why can't people just even seem to smile? But that's, as leaders, right? We've got to get to the bottom of that. And And I think that just as we're the recipients of all who have come before us, I think all of the team members who are in are also the recipients of everyone in our organization day in and day out. Like, I don't think we change our tune a lot. It's not like flavor of the day where it's like, hey, today we're going to, instead of saying my pleasure, we're going to say something else, right? Yeah. Like, I think it's pretty, structured. And I think when we look back, and that happened recently, I was kind of looking back on something from about a year ago, and I'm like, the cool thing is we're saying all of the same things, right? Like, the business is always evolving, we're changing, but fundamentally, like, our vision and our values and our principles and like tactics, right? Like Dan Cathy, Truett's son, always said, like, marry the mission, date the method, right? And I think that there's truth to that every day. Like, we will become dinosaurs if we just don't progress daily, but we also don't need to go reinvent the wheel every single day. And so I think it's like getting rooted in like who we are, or really who we want to be, who we are, and then how do we bridge that gap. And I think that's that daily training, right? That's that daily inspiration to take team members to that next level, which really comes, I think, through like empowerment to just go be amazing, go be special.
Yeah, and I think that's just something when I started that was cool. Like, that was like selling food, great, right? Helping and being able to serve our guests was the cool part. Being able to like, well, for instance, when I started out doing a bunch of dining room all the time and things, and then going up to the hospitality leader and stuff like that, being able to just come to work and be like, cool, I get to, yes, follow the systems that are there and that I ended up putting in place and that are in place, but also just not going beyond that and being able to serve guests as well. Mm-hmm. Going that second amount, seeing that service that we get to put into place. Because a lot of restaurants can be like, this is what you have to do, and you have to do all these things, and that's all you can do. So I mean, that's a lot of places because they don't necessarily trust their employees because they want it done a certain way, they want it done that way only. But when, like what you're saying, being able to trust the employees down from that chain of command, it allows for more flexibility, and then you get to see team members do these really cool things with really different ideas. You're like, oh, that's actually a great idea. Now, how about we do that? When you don't trust your team members and they have to follow the set systems, new systems can't be developed to help the team get better, mm-hmm. which is something that I enjoy and that I really like about working at Chick-fil-A is that we get to, if we have an idea, we get to come back, hey, we did this idea, but not only did we have this idea, we tried it today and it worked, and here's the results. It's something that I enjoy being able to do as a shift lead, as a leader there at Chick-fil-A is something really cool and being able to do.
Have you ever read the book Delivering Happiness? It's a story about Zappos. And again, don't look at Zappos today because it might be like what Zappos, but back in the day when it was really progressing from nothing to becoming this powerhouse online service, kind of specifically in the footwear industry is how it designed. And so it was kind of very personal to us being in the footwear industry back then. But Tony Hsieh, who created it, he unfortunately was this visionary who passed away, and so I think that was a lot of the success of the business was kind of tethered to him, and I think there were ups and downs through all that. But regardless of that, you take a step back on how they went from like everyone else in the industry was cutting call services, they were cutting the human touch and trying to automate and trying to so here he was like, hey, we're going to go online, but we're going to have amazing customer service. And he did that through creating these customer service experiences where he would hire you in, give you your workspace, say design it however you want, and they had just all these wacky, theme days. Yeah. It'd basically be like, go be amazing. And there's a story in the book where he was at a conference and some friends of his were like, I don't know if that's really quite, if you, I don't know if you guys are doing everything that, you're proclaiming that you do. He's like, here, try it. So they called and someone was like, hey, I'd like to order a pizza. Again, they're calling someone that sells probably predominantly shoes at the time. And so without skipping a beat, the customer service person on the phone was like, hey, we don't sell pizza, but tell me where you're located and I'll help you find the closest option, right? Yeah. There was no training for that. Like, he didn't like, hey, if someone calls and asks for a pizza, right? How many other people would have just hung up or, whatever, but they were having fun with that guest. And I think that's just a perfect experience of everything you just said, right? Like we have to make the job easy so that we can then have the emotional intelligence to pour back into it. Like when you lead shifts, if you're just head down trying to hang on, there's not a whole lot of care, love, passion that's going into it. And so I think like if that's our job as leaders is to simplify the experience so that the experience does then turn into that second mile service is
Yeah.
what you could call that.
Yeah. We talk a lot about, not my notes, but I was thinking about it. We talk a lot about culture and the culture at our store. What does that mean to you, and what would you like to see the culture be at Chick-fil-A?
Culture is a tricky one, right? Because there will always be a culture.
Yeah.
It's just, is it the culture that we want? Our vision is to be a distinctively better experience.
Yes.
And then our core values actually align with those. Traditional core values are honesty, integrity, and while we still very much value those and have ways to measure it, we also believe like our core values start with safety, right? Like if we're going to be distinctively better, it's got to start there. And then friendlier. We put the ER on the end to be just always striving for that next thing. So I think that like if that is going to be our vision, right, to be a distinctively better experience, like that has to be our culture, right? Like those kind of have to align. And so I often say orientation to simplify that, like what does it mean to really be a distinctively better experience? So imagine someone's driving from Texas to California, driving through Tucson, they see our sign, they need to use the restroom, they're hungry, they pull in. I want them to get back into their car and be jealous that we're not their local Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
It might be because of the food, right? Hopefully the food's
Yeah.
all right all the time and it's pleasing to them. But I think it's all those other, right? Like the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, the second mile service that I really want to be cultural, where it might be something different or it might be different for everyone. Someone might get in the car and say, man, that place was very clean, or wow, that place was so friendly, or that place, whatever it is. And hopefully it's a combination of all of it. That to me speaks through culture. And I think that culture has to start with transparent trust and authentic trust. I think if we're not authentic, we're not who we are, we're not always striving, then I think it's not going to come off very valid. Truett talked a lot about the difference of success and excellence. And, we could be successful, but maybe that success was because Target wasn't there and all of a sudden it was, and our sales are booming and we're like, look how great we are.
Yeah.
But Truett also said he'd rather have one restaurant do a good job than have hundreds where 10% of them are underperforming. And so I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like we need to be good at everything. We're pursuing that level of excellence. Sometimes I do think like a B, right? When it comes to food safety, like no, like A is going to be that, right? But you can't be 100% across the board in everything. And even Truett said, hey, if you're going to make a bad cup of coffee, at least be consistent with it so your guests know what to expect. Is I think when it comes to culture, like we have to just be consistent. We have to be consistent for the team. If I walk in one day and I'm pulling everyone aside to go watch YouTube videos, and then the next day I come in and I'm kicking boxes all mad, right? Like you guys are like, who is this guy? Like who am I supposed to be today? Yeah. Like it just needs to be consistent, right? We just want to be consistently good. And I think that actually does breed a level of excellence, because I think most people, right? Most organizations, like we have human emotions, good days, bad days. Again, like our life ultimately is unfortunately like dictated to our circumstances. And so I think if we just find joy, right? Knowing that it's not in our circumstances, that like, ultimately it's in Christ, we're given this opportunity, and we're going to go do it. And if someone doesn't have that belief of like, hey, my identity is in Christ and my joy is in Christ, at least they can come into an environment hopefully like ours and just be like, at least I know it's consistent, right? Like my life stinks right now outside of work, but I know when I pull into that parking lot and I walk in, there's going to be friends at work, there's going to be consistent expectations, right? There's going to be consistent accountability. And I think that kind of just allows people to rest a little bit. It's okay, like now I can go be the best version of myself, as opposed to walking around. I mean, I would hate to be a leader that walks around with a clipboard and like, oh, you just sneezed, and it's easy to lead that way. I think a lot of new leaders like to lead that way because it's hard to trust, right? It's hard to set expectations, hopefully train people or equip people, and then like set them free. Like that's hard, right? And I think that takes time of maturity to be able to get there. But I would much rather like send you out and say, go be the best version of yourself, as opposed to like, you need to go out and you need to do it this way, exactly like this. And sure, if you're cooking the chicken, it needs to be exactly like this. But once we get that done, just go be awesome. Go be the best version of yourself. And I think that breeds a culture of just empowerment and excitement.
Yeah, it makes people enjoy coming to work, because people can come to work with, like you're saying, their head down. They're like, oh, whatever. But then the guests are going to see that as like, okay, what's wrong with them? Why are they that way? And why is the whole team because especially as a leader, if a leader comes in, the shift lead comes in and isn't excited, right? There'd be days where, I'll be struggling with something and I'm shift leading and I'm not excited, but then my team's not as excited. We're not talking as much because I like to have fun when I shift lead and pick on people. People pick on me, and it's totally fun because it makes someone laugh and it makes us faster and makes us better at our job too. But when I'm struggling with something and I'm not doing that, I usually recognize it in the morning that, hey, I need to okay, God, help me to be a good leader. Help me to have that positive energy that influences these other people. And then he helps me flip the switch, and we're happy, and we're picking on each other. We're having fun. We're getting food out. We're having fun with the guests at the window. We're taking orders and all these different things. But yeah, just that positive attitude, being able to come into work knowing that, hey, let's go have fun. Let's go serve people. Let's go enjoy serving people is part of huge when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I wish coming up on 9 years that we got it right every season, and we haven't, right, because we're humans. And I think that's probably always, when I look back over 9 years, my biggest regret. I never want someone who's worked for us to regret working for us or have had a bad experience. Obviously, at any given time, we have over 110, 115 team members. I lead orientation. The very last thing I always say is hey, this is going to sound doom and gloom, but at some point we're going to let you down. And then I follow up with but I'm your guy, right? If you can't solve that with the shift lead, you can't solve it with someone else. My heart, and I know their heart, isn't to just let that be, but we move fast. We have a lot going on. So yeah, I just don't want anyone to ever look back and be that place wasn't that great, or that place doesn't do the things that they say, which is always interesting when you read leadership books. I would never want to write a leadership book, because I feel the moment I did, they'd be I worked there, that didn't happen. So I think it's this we're always striving for it, right? And I am proud of, over the 9 years, we've the majority of the time we've gotten it right, but it pains me for the times that we've gotten it wrong, because I believe in it that much. I don't want to just come in and be just okay, right? I want to strive for that excellence, settle on hey, we're really good, great, and we could be that place for people that, again, I want them to look back on wherever they go in life, and be that was hard, it was fast paced, it was the grind at times, but man, it was fun, right? I know that my leaders cared about me. I've not found a job since that I feel cares about me as much, even if it's a big corporation, right? We can't do some of the things that big corporate can, but we can do a lot of things that they can't as well. And I want those to be the memorable things for people. Yeah,
and that's important, and it's something all of our shift leads should strive to do, and all leaders in general. So just being able to have that personal context. I'm guilty of this when I go to other Chick-fil-A's or other restaurants. I'm always looking for the shift lead, see what they're doing. Usually, for the most part, not necessarily Chick-fil-A's, but for the most part, at other restaurants, they're just kind of sitting in the back on their phone, just doing whatever, and then telling the other people to do things. But when you go to a Chick-fil-A, and especially hopefully ours, you see the shift lead interacting with our employees. But hey, what do you need? How can I help you? They're struggling on bagging or something. Let's hop in, and let's give them the resources that they need to accomplish the task that's at hand, and stuff like that. So it's something that we strive for, and something that's different than Chick-fil-A, and that I enjoy being able to do. I can be a people pleaser at times, so for me that's kind of how I always am. So someone's having a bad day, I pick on people, and I know who I can and can't pick on, and things like that, and how far I can go with those people. But hey, I normally pick on you. You're not picking back at me. What's going on? What can we do to make your day better, and stuff like that? And then it drives them to be happier, and then other people that might not be in that see it, and then they become happier, and then now everyone's having a great day, and we're bumping elbows, and we're giving high fives and things, and we're having fun, we're laughing during our shift, and before you know it, the shift's over, and you're oh, it should get to there's especially a lot of days where you're oh man, the shift's already over, bummer. And that's what it should be all the time, and that's what we try to make it, and things like that. So yeah, so very, very important. So I want to look at faith and service, because faith obviously has an impact on the way we serve and why we serve. So how does your Christian faith influence the way you serve people?
Yeah, I think for me, and I would say probably any Christian, right? Or we'll call it like a Jesus follower. Like if you're really following and seeking Jesus, like his whole life was about service.
Yeah.
So if we're going to model that, it's fundamentally, I think, has to start there. I think obviously he calls each and every one of us to do that in a different way. And that's the beauty of it, right? Again, if it was a world full of me's, this would be a crazy place.
Yeah.
But I think how he's wired me, the things that he's infused in me that help me kind of find that joy. And I think we've been doing a lot over the last probably couple of years of like at the restaurant, trying to find, and we haven't found the right one. We found kind of versions of whether it's a personality test or, but ultimately get to the root of like what brings us joy. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that we're going to do in a role brings us joy. I mean, that's
Right.
not life, right? Yeah. But I think, just like what you were saying, I mean, there's days, like I'm pretty much a strong introvert, I would say. But when I'm at the restaurant, it's different, right? Because it's wild and it's crazy and it's chaotic. And my wife and I were actually talking the other day about going somewhere, and we're just like, oh, it's going to be super busy. And I was laughing because I'm like literally every day at Chick-fil-A when you're in that dining room, and I just look around in awe sometimes at just how much is happening and how crazy and how chaotic. It's obviously within our personalities, with how God wired us. We're driven by certain things. We need things. We can obviously like overcome certain things. I had a consultant one time ask me if I was tired all the time back in the flea feet world, because everything I was doing was on the marketing outreach community side, where I would not want to probably even go to a party, but I could host a party, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so just my personality kind of back and forth with that, of being able to know like, hey, like this needs to get done. I'm doing this for a purpose. Like I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I think that, like, I think looking at, again, how God has equipped me and each and every one of us, I think that's what drives the service aspect is, again, kind of going back to the like, we get to do this, wherever he puts us in any season of life. Why not give it your best? Why not give it your all? Because again, ultimately, I think if we look at what he did for us and the sacrifices he gave us, he certainly gave his best for us. And so why not, again, in any season? And it's hard as humans, because I think sometimes we think we deserve more than maybe we do in the season, or we want more, or life's unfair, or the comparison trap. And so I think just trying to be present in our own understanding and our own relationship, and like, hey, regardless of the circumstance, like we are here right now, and so let's give it our best. And I think when we come into Chick-fil-A, like, yes, there's certain days, I'm sure you wake up at whatever time, 4:30 in the morning, to come in, and you're like, I really don't want to go in today. But you give it your best, and you come in. And I think that like having faith, I mean, if you don't have faith, you can still work hard and do that for sure, right? But I would hope that anyone who has that faith, it's just that extra layer of intentionality to like, hey, like I get to do this today, and I'm doing it for a bigger purpose than just my own glory or my own satisfaction or even my own paycheck. Yeah,
that should be, because just in general in the Christian life, like we should be doing everything to our best, because that's what God expects from us, is that we do our best in all that we say and do. But like doing best for other people, because we get to demonstrate Christ's love through that. We get to demonstrate the way Christ loved us by the way we get to love and serve other people. And if we love and serve other people like we ought to, like the Bible tells us to, it'll be demonstrated through that. And then our service will come as a result of it. It'll be that higher standard of a service than someone that's not saved or not a believer would, because that's not something they've experienced for themselves. So it's something, it's really cool to be able to demonstrate Christ's love, that, hey, I get to serve you because God did this for me, and I can demonstrate God's love to you because of what God has done for me. And that's how we get to show love to God too, because God loves people, and if we love people and we're serving people, we get to do the job that God wants us to do, and that's how we can, serve God in that way. So obviously we see serving people as an opportunity to show Christ's love, but how can Christians take the idea of serving others beyond just the workspace and put it into everyday life?
I think it's much of the same, in the sense that someone doesn't, a guest doesn't walk into Chick-fil-A and you're like, hey, what would you like? And they're like, I'd like a number 2. And like, oh, would you like a Bible with that on the side, right? Would you like a Bible study? So I think it's through our actions, through our consistent actions too, right? Like it's not, like if you're living one way on Sunday and the rest of the ways on the other 6 days of the week, or you're inconsistent, it's not a good reflection, right? And I think to like live as Christ, or to pursue that, like actions alone just aren't going to be good enough, as I believe in a work spot, like workplace, right? Like if you were to come in and just be like, well, I want to lead, like I just want people to see how I lead and follow it. Like people need to be told and instructed and intentionality. And so I think when it comes to serving, whether it's across the world, like going out to the Great Commission, right, or across the street, again, it's listening to that nudge of the Holy Spirit and saying like, hey, I get to do this, right, for a bigger purpose. And even if at times like, hey, I don't want to do this, right, but like there's always going to be needs out there. And I think if you're fortunate enough to be in a workplace that like aligns similarly with biblical principles, I think it's a great, it's kind of interwoven, right? But I think even if you aren't, like perhaps you get to be a bigger light in that workplace and then take that into personal life. And again, it's like, what are you doing from a service level? Just like here at your church, right? Like the church needs service, right? It needs people to take care of the property, like we were talking about, and how well this place is maintained, and all the intentionality too of walking in and hearing the music coming from the rocks and stuff, right? Like there's like, we get to do those moments for people, and we say moment creators in the Chick-fil-A world, but I also believe that just in our daily lives, it's all those little moments that I think do pique people's interest to be like, tell me more, right? And again, if you're like this and up and down, like I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of people looking to follow. But if you're just consistent and people are just like, hey, I feel like I can go to you a lot when I have a struggle or have a question, right? And then that opens up the door for more intentionality and those kind of things. So I think service is often, it's like the little things become the big things, as opposed to like, well, I serve on this committee or I serve on this. It's all important, right? Like we need all of those. But I think, if you're driving into a parking lot and you see a spot right up front, are you going to zip into it or be like, hey, maybe there's someone who has mobility issues, or maybe there's going to be a mom with a bunch of kids, like let me just leave that for them, right? Like that's totally like they would never know, right? But I think it's just finding those intentional ways all day throughout the day to show Christ's love, and again, the small things become the big things, I think.
Being able to make people's day by just doing little things here and there, saying happy birthday to somebody when a kid comes in and giving them a brownie or a cookie or something like that makes the kid's day, but also makes the parents' day, because it shows them, hey, we care about you, we care about your kid, and we're celebrating with you. Just an example of something that we.
I think that goes to being seen, right? I think everybody wants to be seen. I think some people are more seen than others. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people out there that don't have that in other areas. And so, yes, if it's at Chick-fil-A and they come in and we can do something special for them, like that might make their day. But again, Chick-fil-A aside, I mean, there's people, a 3-mile radius of right here, right? And then you start looking at Moran and you start looking at Oro Valley and Tucson. Like there's so many needs everywhere. And I think it's just being intentional, and being willing to, again, you can't take on everybody's needs, and that's the risk. I think you got to take on your own needs at first, right? Build your own house before you can go help others. But I think it's just, again, it's listening and being intentional to when you're getting that nudge of like, hey, maybe there's something there, and it's worth slowing down life a little bit to go show that care for somebody.
Yeah, doing what Christ, because Christ had needs while he was here on earth. I mean, he didn't have a place, the Bible says, to rest his head. He didn't have a home. He wandered, but he wandered around caring for the needs of other people. I think of the woman at the well. I mean, Jesus was hungry, or else he wouldn't have told the disciples to go get bread. And he sends them off to go get bread, and he goes through Samaria, which the Jews wouldn't do because they saw the Samaritans as half-breeds and didn't want anything to do with those people. But he says, I must needs go through Samaria for the purpose of knowing that there is a woman there that needs him, that wants to be saved, and later a whole community be changed because of that one lady. And the same thing with the demon at demoniac, where Christ goes across the sea to see this one guy and help him and serve him and help him to be better, even though he just got done preaching to a bunch of people and probably wants some rest. But goes and does that, gets rejected by people, but when he comes back later in his ministry, they're accepting him because of that one guy that he tells to stay there. So the impact that we can have in one person's life is huge. And it starts with, like you're saying, the little things. Little thing here. You don't know the impact that one little thing that you do might have in somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, and I think the do for one what you wish you could do for many.
Yeah.
That probably could be overstated and, viewed different ways. But I think when you have an opportunity, even if it seems small and mundane, it could be something that's being used for a much bigger purpose or evolves into something, right? And so I think it's never having, I think pride probably gets in the way a little bit of that too, of just like, it's when you look at like, God, how could you let this happen, right? Like, and then it's kind of like, well, that's why I have you guys, right? Yeah. So let me ask you guys, how could you let this happen, right? And I think it's kind of owning the intentionality and the responsibility of what it means to, like, if you're going to be a servant of Christ, you're going to follow Jesus, like, what does that mean? And I think it like there has to be intentionality there. Yeah.
So looking at leadership, what does good leadership look like to you? You being a leader, you have leaders and we have leadership meetings all the time. What does a good leader look like, and what does good leadership look like to you?
So I'll tell two stories around that. One is personal and one is just kind of like someone I've kind of admired. So I'll start with that one. Do you know who Joe Gibbs is?
I think the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a football coach, had won, I think it was 3 or 4 Super Bowls with the Washington Redskins, and then transitioned into race, like NASCAR. Okay. And I think he's won, I think it's around 10 plus national championships. Or series championships.
That's probably why I know his name.
Yeah. And so he has Joe Gibbs Racing. His grandson races now for him. He's lived a tough life. He's lost 2 of his sons to two different things, and his wife had a stroke when they were younger. I was fortunate to get to hear him talk one time at a men's retreat, and what I loved is, here's a guy that's won multiple Super Bowls, and he's just up there cracking jokes, talking about how he has a physical education degree, and he's like, I don't know how I got here, but I think he knows. I think God's orchestrating him. He's a super hard worker, but I think when I look at leadership, so here's a guy, he tells a lot of stories too about, like, right now everybody wants to be the Super Bowl winning coach, right? We see all the head coaches and we're like, I want that, right? And what they don't realize is those individuals, as Joe is explaining, I mean, he started as a volunteer coach somewhere, sleeping on people's couches, just for opportunities to be able to get that, to then evolve into Super Bowl winning coaches, where he was spending 20 hours a day at the office, sleeping at the office, and football was his life. Yeah. He was successful, right? But then ultimately transitioned out. I don't know the full story about why he transitioned out, but you could argue he transitioned into a whole nother industry of leadership where he's been arguably more successful. So I look at good leadership as someone like him. I doubt he can go onto the floor of the auto shop and start talking to the engineers in ways that are telling them things that they don't know, right? But he can assemble a team. He can inspire a team. And I often talk about that at our restaurant, is imagine someone came in, like, let's say if we grab Joe Gibbs to come in and he's going to lead the shift tonight. I don't think he probably knows a whole lot about running a Chick-fil-A. But to me, a good leader can come in, and the first thing they would do is be like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And assemble that team, inspire the team, and motivate the team. Now, at some point, you do have to, like, have a foundational knowledge, and depending on, like as a shift lead, let's say, like, you have to be very intimate with some of those details, because the beautiful thing is we are very hands-on. But if it required you to do all those things, not going to work, right? And so when I look at leadership, I look at a guy like Coach Gibbs, who's been able to like reinvent himself across industries and be successful in it, which to me means that he knows how to lead people. It's that emotional intelligence. The cool thing is he goes to the track every weekend. I think he's in his 80s now, probably. Okay. And he's there when they win. He's huddling up first thing and they do a prayer. He's evangelizing to fans and teams. And he has if it's a company, but a platform called Game Plan for Life. So check it out. It's pretty good. Okay. And it's just cool how he's, again, used the gifts that God's given him, but I don't think he would claim to be the smartest person in the room, right? So I think when you look at leaders, especially worldly leaders, I think they have to believe for themselves that, yes, I am the smartest person in the room. I am the most dominant person in the room. And I don't think that lends itself often to when you really look at the true successful leaders. I mean, sometimes they're the most quiet people in the room, and they're good at assembling smarter people around them and motivating smarter people. And it's just like at our restaurant, if I didn't have all of the leaders that we have, like, again, that would be a pretty we would be a bad Chick-fil-A, right? like this business grew more than me the minute we opened, right? And so I think it's finding really, really good people and let them go do good things, and I need to kind of be there to support them. And then I think the next example is more of a personal one. When I was a firefighter, I had a captain who he actually went on to become the chief of the department. And not a whole lot, like, people, I think, respected him, but they didn't like working for him because he was very firm. Mm-hmm. And I loved it because he was firm, but he was also fair. And I think that's missed so much, right? Like, structure and accountability is needed. Consequences are needed, and consequences are good and bad, right? He was an amazing person, but he also would call you out when you weren't doing something you were supposed to do. And I remember there was, we ran both fire and EMS, so we would take patients to the hospital and we'd wheel them in on the stretcher, put them in their room, wheel the stretcher out, and then we'd have to go restock the ambulance and get new linens for the stretcher. On the way out to the ambulance was the closet with all the new linens, and so it was really easy to just park that stretcher there for 45 seconds, run into the closet, get what you need, and leave. And it would drive him nuts because he's like, hey, this is not our house, right? Like, this is the hospital. This is, like, we need to respect that. Take that stretcher out, come back in. We're like, gotcha, right? So the next call, we're like, we could just grab this really quick, right? And it's just, but that, like, as humans, right? Like, we need leaders who are going to hold us accountable. Now, I think it's how we do it, right? Mm-hmm. I think if like there's a difference between having high expectations and just being a butthead, right? Yeah. Or having high expectations and being mean and being insensitive, or like you talk about, like, hey, I normally goof around with you a little bit. Today doesn't seem like that what's going on, and you realize, like, oh, they have a family member in the hospital. Like, yeah, of course they're going to need more encouragement then. And I think when we just look at it as transactional, like, I told you to do this and you need to do it. Like, no one's gonna, right? That's managers, and that's why we don't call anyone managers in our restaurant. Not to knock anyone that does, but I just don't like that term because I feel like we do way more, right? Like, leading is not managing. Like, we have to manage things and manage people, but I think leaders, like, ultimately lead. So I think when I look at leadership or leaders, I look at those two people. And I my captain I used in the Chick-fil-A interview process multiple times as an example of a good leader because I was only with him for a short period of time, but he's still, like, I still think and reflect on that of just kind of like who he was and how he led, and he went on to lead the entire department until he retired. So I think like, you could also argue that he was a successful leader in that regard. Yeah, that's important. So leadership is huge, and we emphasize that, especially with our leaders that have good leadership and managerial experience is great, but being able to lead a person, and that has more to do with not just managing what's going on, because yes, that's important, managing all the systems and things, but being able to work hands-on with somebody and have more of a relationship when you're a leader than just a manager. So, well, and look at yourself, right? Like, you need to know you call them the hard skills or the tactics of what we do in order to lead a shift. Right. But if you didn't have the soft skills or the emotional intelligence, like, no one's going to follow you, right? Yeah. Like, no one's going to do something just because you tell them to do it. I mean, they might do it that day because they have no choice, but they also might not show up the next day because they're like, I don't, need to go work for that guy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not caring. And so again, that's kind of like the lazy leadership in my mind, and maybe lazy or inexperienced new, because I think it's very common to just be like, well, I told them, and or if it's like, hey, why isn't this working? I don't know, like I told them. Well, that's fine, right? But
Yeah.
like tell them 17 more times, right? Like it's and 17 more times after that. Like it's never ending, right? And as a leader, you have to like surrender some of your wants. It should never be like, well, I think a leader, or they should know that this is just me, right?
Yeah.
Like this is how I lead. It's like doesn't matter, right? Like our whole responsibility is to figure out what this person needs, what this person needs, and that's leadership. That's caring. I think again, it's easier just to have a corporate rollout of just like do this, as opposed to like, hey, we're going to treat this as a team of individuals. We collectively are going to have like standards and consistency, but
Right.
like there's a bunch of human beings with emotions and stuff going on that we have to figure out how to rally to get to that common goal, not just expect them to get there.
Yeah, and supports to have that, not just leadership, but servant leadership.
Mhm.
Whereas we're leading the team, but we're serving the team as we lead them, and that's what's important. That's what Jesus did. He served his disciples while he led them and instructed them, and as a result, they followed him, and he had a mass following because of the leadership and the servitude to those people that he led, and they wanted to follow him. So, as a leader, having that mindset of, I'm not here just to lead the team and tell the people what to do, because that's what a lot of people think they get to do when they come to a leadership position. Oh, I just get to boss everyone around and things, and I'm the head person there. Well, that's not really the case. In all reality, what our guests see is not you. They see the teammates there. They see the people in red, not the people in blue. They see, those are the people that they see. Those are the people that they focus on. We're there to put them forward and give them what they need to be able to accomplish their job the best and make them have fun. And that's what a leader should be. Not someone that just bosses people around, even though that's part of the job. But when you give them the expectation, you shouldn't have to boss them around, because they already know what's going on. They enjoy working for you, and they're going to do it with a good attitude because you care for them. And as a result, they know that this is what you want to do, so they care for you, and then they're going to do it to their best ability.
Yeah.
So servant
Cared
leadership
for
is-
people, care for people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So important stuff. So at Chick-fil-A, last big topic, we serve what we call the next generation. We have a lot of younger people working there, which is weird for me to say. 'Cause I'm also in that younger generation category, but there's a lot of people that are even younger than me that are working there and stuff, and a lot of 18, 16-year-olds that are working there now. What are some things that you wish young people understood? We train a lot of young people at Chick-fil-A. I know, because I worked at Chick-fil-A at 18, and I actually was able to grow a lot through Chick-fil-A. Some things I didn't know, some things I can actually apply to my life while serving at the church, or serving at Chick-fil-A in general, or serving people, whatever the case is, and just good life skills. But what are some things that you wish young people knew when they come into the workforce?
I think, and it's a hard thing to probably teach a 16-year-old,
Uh-huh.
but I think if we did a better job teaching people to find their why, I think there would be a better ramp up of whatever they do, right? Even in school. I mean, how many people are just going to school because they have to?
Yeah, right.
They're sitting in ninth grade biology or whatever it is, and but if they really got to the root of like, hey, why am I here? Like, what is this doing for me? Like you talk about yourself, you come in at 18 and arguably more mature than you were at 15 or 16. And perhaps that helped you kind of ramp up. But I think we also could probably get a 22-year-old that's going to come in and not understand their why. And so I think that would be the biggest thing, that if we could teach in life or teach in schools, and perhaps we need to do a better job teaching that when people come into Chick-fil-A, is we have a roadway. And again, for some people they're looking long term, some people they're just like, hey, I just need a job. That makes me cringe when someone's like, I just need a job. I know that happens, but if that's the case, I want really quickly for them to realize, like, yeah, like I did just need a job. And we do hear this from team members from time to time, which I think is encouraging. Like, I did just come in here like, hey, it's a job. I don't know what the difference of this is compared to another quick service down the road. But then hopefully pretty quickly and so maybe we are doing it in different ways that's not even like structured, where they're just like, yeah, but like I'm doing something bigger than myself. I'm doing something I didn't think I could do. And we have stories of high schoolers who, told me like, I used to be so shy in front of the class, and now I can get up and give a talk and have total confidence because you're on stage, you're on a platform at Chick-fil-A. And so I think that would probably be that, and perhaps I need to get more intentional with figuring out a solution for that.
Yeah. So I know, well, especially for me, because I am not a people person. Believe it or not, I'm not a people person. I would much rather put me behind a computer doing stuff, make other people look good, and put me behind a camera or whatever the case is. Put me not in front of people. I'll make other people look good. Love doing that. But don't put me in front of people. I didn't like talking to people. It was hard for me to talk to people and just go and talk. But, after working at Chick-fil-A, especially when you're out in the dining room, you have to talk to people. Mm-hmm. Like, that's cleaning the floors, tables, and windows is all great. And taking out the trash is great. That's half the job. Mm-hmm. The other half is talking to people. Hey, can I get you a refresh? How's your day going today? Different things like that. People are, over there kind of looking sad. Hey, can I get you guys anything? How's your day going? Stuff like that is help me to be able, when we go out passing out tracts or flyers and talking to people, but hey, it gives me more encouragement and boldness to be able to talk to that person, because I do it all the time at work. I'm still not a people person, but it helps me and it's grown me in that way to be able to not be as scared, I guess, to talk to people. So, yeah.
What's funny though? I think a lot of people, probably a lot of pastors actually, are not these extroverts that they maybe even appear to be on Sunday or on a podcast platform.
Right.
but I think that's also kind of the why, right? Mm-hmm. Like figuring out that like life is not just, again, doing the things that are warm and fuzzy and make us comfortable. Like it is getting out. And if we're given a platform or given gifts to do certain things, there's a whole spectrum of that. And I think that does come back even to the why of like, yes, I don't really like to talk to people. Okay, like Chick-fil-A probably isn't going to be the right thing, right. But I know I need to talk to people. And honestly, we get people who share that in interviews, which I love, that they're that self-aware, where they're just like, I want this job to grow my confidence. And so that is pretty impressive if they're like, hey, like my why here is to come and be pushed in this kind of chaotic, crazy environment where people expect me to be on all the time. Yeah. And so, I think that probably would be a good summary of, I wish everyone coming through could get to that why quicker. Some do, some I think struggle with it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for the next generation, what's some advice you could give to someone that's a Christian coming into the workforce?
Mm-hmm. I think just to keep it consistent with what we've talked about, just like have belief and trust in where God is calling you to be, to give it your best, mm-hmm. and give it your best for His glory, but give it your best again for all those things we just talked about to push and grow, because I think God's going to use us in different seasons, right? I mean, you look at all throughout the Bible, so many stories where I feel like in today's day and age, we would just throw our hands up and give up and be like, this is ridiculous. I'm better than this, right? Yeah. Or like, I can't believe. So it's a patience game, right? And it's a growth game. And I think just going in and just being intentional with where you are in any given season and what you're doing, and learn from it, grow in it, and just give it your best.
Yeah. So important information for any young person that wants to be in the workforce. So in closing, what is one lesson that God has taught you, maybe through your life, but maybe through your career, that might be helpful for somebody else?
I think I still struggle with it, but I think I've gotten better through patience, uh-huh. right? I know, especially when I was younger, I just wanted things to happen. I think it's how I'm wired, right? Like if we are going to sit down and strategize something, it's just like, okay, let's go. Yeah. And so it would drive me crazy when we would, or like when I was younger, perhaps even like not too many years ago, and then it would say, okay, hold tight, it's going to take a week or two to come up with a answer. I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, let's go. And then I think personally, patience of like, I don't like lines drive me crazy. I don't think they add any value to anybody. Patience with, you know, family, friends, all of that. And so I think like having the ability to find ways to navigate those, whether you call it like a personal struggle or a tendency where
Yeah.
it's like I want this done now and I want this done,
Right.
you know, like however, yeah, I think, you know, patience is definitely something that I've learned over time. I don't have any great like single story that like, hey, through this, like this got better. I think patience is obviously something I'm gonna struggle with my
Yeah.
whole life, but I think looking back, like I do think God has taught me patience. Like I'm in a season of waiting right now, right? Like our church is in a season of waiting, right? And so I think there are going to be those seasons, and I think there's maturity that comes with that of like, all right, God, like I know you're working through this, and I'm just gonna sit in it, which is again hard for a guy that doesn't like lines
Yeah.
and doesn't like
Yeah.
all of those things in your day to day that test my patience. And so
Right.
I feel like I am kind of maturing in that a little bit and kind of settling in. And so whether it's patience or whatever, I think it's just like trying to fundamentally realize and understand like where you struggle and where God's using things to help you through that.
Yeah. I think patience is one of the hardest, probably one of the hardest things to learn, because you can never, I personally believe that you can never achieve perfect patience. Um, a lot of it requires just faith in God. But okay, God, I mean, there's times in my life where I've had to learn patience with, especially with my car situation, that not working and not having a car for basically my whole high school career, and having to borrow my parents' car and waiting for an engine to come in or waiting for somebody to be able to fix it, or whatever the case is, and different things that have happened. Okay, God, I need to take my hands off the steering wheel. I'm gonna go sit in the passenger seat and let you take control. I'm just gonna trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to, I like to solve issues, and I don't like to watch them play out. I like to, I don't know, me personally, I like to, if there's a problem, I need to solve this problem right now. Let's solve it, and let's get over it, and let's get through it. And there's times where God's like, nope, you're not going to solve it because you'll never solve it. Let me solve it for you,
Yeah.
and watch me solve it for you and follow in my footsteps. And it's something that really I've had to learn. It requires a lot of faith, and something that probably something you always struggle with, but to the extent you'll probably never struggle to the extent as you once have if you keep learning and practicing it. I mean, Job had a lot of faith in his life, losing everything he had in a day to trust God and go, okay, God, you're in control, and then God blessed him at the end of it. And to our knowledge, didn't know why God was doing what he was doing, but had the patience to trust God and do it. I don't think I could do that if I was in Job's shoes. That's crazy stuff. I mean, even Joseph too, when his brothers throwing him into a pit and then going up a little more to the ruler of Potiphar's house, then going back down to being lied about, and then going back into prison to them being second command. A lot of patience over a lot of period of time, and something that always work on, something very important for every Christian. So.
And the cool thing is to look back in life or
Yeah.
seasons and be like, hey, because this, and this, it led to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's painful when you're in it and you're in that
Yeah.
mess. Yeah.
But then you got to use it and be like, hey, you got to encourage other people, which I've been able to do and has helped me a lot. It's be, hey, God's done this for me, which means if you follow him, he'll do it for you. And I have a God that can do these things for you. And something huge that doesn't just affect us, but it does affect other people, because people are watching. People are watching how we react to different things that are going on in our life. Probably people are watching and know more than we probably think they do. And just be like, hey, I went through a similar situation and God did this for me. And it just means he can do it for you. You just got to trust him. That's all you have to do. So being able to encourage people with that is huge. So, yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast. I appreciate all you do and being such a great boss, all that and stuff, and been very encouraging to me and things like that. So I really appreciate it and thankful for that. So.
Well, thank you. And
Yes,
I appreciate you and all that you have done, and watching what you're doing here is absolutely amazing. And I know we were talking before the show about what your future goals and ambitions are and where God's going to call you. And I like the humility and like, I don't know, but like, these are the things that I would love. And I think you're going to be doing amazing things. So,
Praise the Lord.
I mean, you are doing amazing things, but you have a lot more amazing things
Yes, sir.
ahead of you. So
Yes,
keep
sir.
it up. Yeah, you were very wise and beyond your years.
Well, praise the Lord. It's all God, and a lot of it to my parents as well and stuff. So I appreciate that. Well, thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below. Click the bell so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And thanks for watching. I hope to see you on our next episode.